Hello there, Nature Hacker back, and I am going to make another video on rockets in space. So I've made two videos before talking about rocket nozzles and Newton's third law, the misinterpretation that NASA uses and other lemming scientists use to explain. That was my last video, and then talking about how rocket nozzles, how the higher your altitude becomes, the larger the nozzle needs to be, and taking that to a logical extreme, in space, your rocket nozzle needs to be infinitely large in order to generate thrust. So that all, I believe, thoroughly disproves rockets in space. However, if you look online, if you just Google rockets don't work in space, there's a big forum post on Clues, what is it? Clues forum or something. And the guy there focuses mostly on Joule Thomson, I believe, free expansion. And I believe, it's a very important topic and definitely worthwhile to, make a video and discuss free expansion and how that relates to rockets not being able to work in space. So, in my last videos, I basically gave NASA the benefit of the doubt and said, hey, look, let's just say that you're right and that all the mass inside of your rocket is being thrown out, and that throwing out of that mass is making the rocket go forward. Even if that were the case, I mean, there's nowhere near enough mass in that rocket to get it to the moon. But in this video, we're not going to give NASA the benefit of the doubt. In this video, we're going to show that, hey, you can't use a gas as a ballast to throw out the back of a rocket in space. It just cannot work. Sure, you can throw off parts of your rocket. You can get people there and set TNT charges, on a bunch of pieces of mass in your rocket and blow off chunks of your rocket in space. And obviously you're not going to go more than like 20 feet from blowing off chunks of your rocket, alright? But you could do that. Or just have a ton of guns on your ship, and you're just shooting guns out towards Earth and just propelling yourself with the recoil from the guns. Yeah, you could do that. The reason you can shoot a gun and actually get movement in space is because the combustion chamber, the expansion chamber, is sealed. Sealed. 100% sealed. Read my lips on that one. Okay. If gas is not contained when it expands in space, it cannot produce work. The reason it can produce work in a gun in space is because the combustion chamber is totally sealed, and the gas is totally contained, and the movement of the gas is totally converted into accelerating the bullet, and the bullet is your ballast. The gas is not your ballast that you're shooting out. The bullet is your ballast, and that's what produces the recoil to make your rocket go 1 millimeter in space. Alright, so NASA says that it shoots gas out the back of its rocket, and that propels it. Now, let's just say you drilled a hole in your gun, in the combustion chamber. Do you think that bullet is really going to go out when you combust the thing? No. The air is going to take the path of least resistance, and instead of blowing the bullet out, that's going to take a lot of work. Why not just escape through the hole? And not have to produce any work. Does it produce any work? Does gas escaping through a hole produce any work? No. The gas has to be contained. I mean, do you have a hole in your piston in your car? The engine piston? Do you have a hole there? No. Because you need the compression there to move the piston. The air isn't producing the work. The movement of the piston is producing the work. Gases don't produce work unless they're acting upon a solid body. And they can only act if it's pressurized. If there's no holes, if there's any holes, the gas will just escape without producing the work you want. Alright, so now NASA has their rockets, right? And they have their combustion chamber. Now, their combustion chamber has a hole in it. Obviously, because that's how it's going to shoot gas out the back, right? So they light the combustion chamber and the gas expands and escapes out the back. Sounds a lot like the hole in the combustion chamber in the gun. Not going to produce any work, just escapes. There's nothing that the gas is pushing on. It's escaping into nothing. So I hope that that makes sense. I mean, I think I pretty thoroughly explained that. You know, gas has to be contained to produce work. There is no other option. Gas always has to be contained to produce work. Now, you can think of a balloon. You can give me a counterexample of a balloon. Well, let's say I blow up a balloon and I blow it up as big and then I let go and it shoots around. You're like, well, the gas wasn't contained there, but it did work. Well, yeah, I mean, it did a small amount of work. Okay, you know, it's moving now a few grams of rubber around. Yeah, but the gas actually was contained. Relatively contained, okay? We're in an atmosphere, alright? We have actually pretty high PSI. What is the PSI here? Like 15? I mean, the PSI in your car tires is like 30, and that's pretty high pressure. You know, we're in a decent high pressure air zone here. So when you're letting gas flow out really fast, yeah, there is going to be a reactionary force because, yeah, that gas is contained. It is, I mean, if you think about it, the gas is contained because it's shooting into 15 psi air, and that 15 psi air is providing some friction, some resistance. Okay, a resistance against that blowing air coming out. So yeah, you're going to make a little bit of a force. Yeah, the air coming out of the combustion chamber, the hole in your gun's combustion chamber is going to produce a little teeny force. You know, that's, air can push against air a little bit. You know, obviously not as much as a totally contained air. I mean, you go from the kick of your gun shooting it, you know, almost hitting you in the face type force to if you have a hole in the expansion chamber is going to be like, you know, so it's very small comparatively. So, but in space, there's no relative containment on your airstream. You can shoot mass out the back, you can shoot gas out the back, because that's what they're shooting. You can shoot gas out the back as fast as you want, but there's no air pressure, there's no friction to be able to relatively contain that gas to actually push you forward. You can't, because you have to have that reactionary force. That gas coming out the back is only going to do work if it does work. And for gas to do work has to be contained. You know, like I said, that's why there's no holes in your your combustion chamber in your gun. There's no holes in the piston chamber in your car engine, because the gas has to be contained to do work. You know, and when you're shooting air out from that balloon, the gas is contained relatively because the friction of the air is producing a slight reactionary force that the balloon can propel off of. But in space, there is none of that. There's no piston to push on. There's no bullet to shoot out. It's just gas being shot into space. And there's no air pressure or anything else to produce a reactionary force. So Newton's third law is not in effect in that case. So that's a special case. I mean, gas is a special case. You can't throw a gas. You know, if I tried to throw some air, not going to work. You have to totally contain the gas. And as soon as you open up a hole in the bottom of your rocket to shoot gas out, it's no longer contained. It can no longer do work.